Thank you for checking out this episode of CTRL ALT STORY, a podcast where I have conversations with people who work in and with technology, go through their career journeys, dive into career advice, and even share some fun stories along the way. My name is Josh Spurgeon, and I'm a watsonx technical specialist at IBM. I can also be found under the name Data Nerd Josh on various social media platforms such as YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. So my guest today is Russ Beardall. He's a principal account technical leader at IBM. Here in just a second, he's going to tell us a little bit more about that role and what that means. Before that, though, I do have a theory that I just want to throw out there. So my theory is that your last name used to be something different, but once you grew that beard, you changed it to Beardall because you're all beard. True or false?
Yeah, actually, it's stranger than that, but pleasure to be here with you today, Josh. For the longest time, actually before pre-COVID, I didn't even know I could grow a beard. And I used to always tell the story that when my ancestors ended up at Ellis Island, our last name was really no beard at all, and they cut it off to Beardall. So
there you go.
There you go. And then COVID, I just started letting it grow because we weren't going to any on-site things. So this is, I actually do Santa Claus every year for my family and for schools in the area. So it's been a fun ride. It gets much longer.
Well, it's actually funny that you say that because I've been trying to explain what I'm going to be doing with this podcast to my kids. So my kids are 6 and 4, and I've been trying to explain, which is a very difficult thing to do because they don't fully understand what I'm talking about. But I was trying to explain to them, and I was telling them a little bit of information about the people I'm going to talk to. And I was talking about you, and I was like, yeah, his last name is Beardall. And I said, he has a big beard. And my son, who's 4, he's like, I want to see it. So I pulled up my phone and I pulled up a picture. And then I was like, well, let me look at Outlook. I think his picture on Outlook, his beard's even bigger than I showed. He's like, look, oh, it is bigger. He's like, show mommy. So then I had to go show my wife. And then I was like, yeah, he actually kind of looks like Santa Claus, doesn't it? And he's like, yeah. Then he's like, is he Santa Claus? I'm like, no, I don't think so. So it's funny that you say that. So principal account technical leader, tell me about that, and anyone listening, tell them about what that means.
Okay. Really, it's simpler to look at the breakdown from a squad level. So each squad has essentially a seller, leader, and then there's an account technical leader, which is that role, the ATL role. And so the overall and the most interesting part about this is you cover everything, hardware, software, and expert labs across the entire landscape of IBM. And really, the job of the ATL is multifaceted. So you're working with the account leader. Just so happens my account seller, or the account technology leader, is they interestingly named both of us the same acronym to begin with, is Russ Robinson. So we're the two Russes. So Russ essentially leads the sellers, whereas my leadership is essentially for all of the technology or the tech sellers for the squad. And so it's really all about sharing the things that I've learned, mentoring, making sure that all of the things that we do as an ATL around putting together really the sales plays, the client technical strategies for each of our clients, doing a lot of the things that connect together all of the different brands. And so it's what I love the most about this job is, it can't be boring. There's too much to do and too many different ways to approach it.
I can't imagine. I mean, in my role, I'm kind of focused on one area. I can't imagine being focused on literally every area and kind of keeping track of everything, that overall landscape and architecture. That would be crazy. So personally, I'm very impressed by that. You're able to keep up with all that. It's wild.
Believe me, Josh, there are days where I go, I really wish I could do just the job of that particular brand. They're definitely, and some days the lure of that is actually very much
calls out to you.
Very much calls.
And if I remember correctly, you're based out of Louisville, Kentucky, correct?
Correct.
And then your client, for those listening who are aware, your client, so you have a dedicated list of clients that you support, and those are all based out of both Tennessee and Kentucky.
Correct.
And that's about.
Although for all those who are native Kentuckians, I'll have to say it's Louisville.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
I used to live in Durham, North Carolina. It's one syllable, Durham.
Durham?
Not During.
Okay, well, I've been saying that one wrong too. I'm originally from Alabama, so who knows how I'm pronouncing.
They're all in the
things.
South, and they all say things different ways. Actually, right. There's a up north where we used to live in Indiana. There's essentially, I mean, these are sister cities, right? I mean, so Louisville, it should be Louisville because it has something to do with King Louis. I can't remember the full history, but there's a very famous French chateau that two cities are named, one in Indiana, the other one in Kentucky. They pronounce them completely different. So that's our American way. We're going to do it our way, man.
There you go. America. Yeah, so I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but some people say Chattanooga. They leave out that extra A in the middle, and you're just like, oh, come on.
Or Chatty. I got a lot of Chatties.
Yeah, Chatty, Chattown, 423. I don't know. I don't say any of that stuff, but I've heard people say it. Yeah. So before you moved into the principal account technical leader role, look, what was your role at IBM? Prior to that, kind of what was the we get back into your journey as far as prior to IBM, but just at IBM, can you kind of tell us about the journey there?
You bet. So software client architect was my previous role, which essentially was similar from a software only standpoint. So you covered all of the software for a particular set of clients, and sometimes just a few. I was covering really large clients like AT&T before coming to this role. And so I think the main difference there is you were still connecting the dots between all of the brands, but the leadership aspect of it wasn't there. And so that was even though I did a lot. It was
more like an individual contributor type role.
Yeah, you essentially were, that guy because beforehand essentially what we call the account executive was still there, but the software client leader was the seller for just all software, and that was who I rode the range with.
Gotcha. And I know you served in several different roles prior to IBM. I mean, we could probably spend a very long period of time talking about that, but do you mind just kind of walking through what some of those different companies, different roles
so
prior to IBM?
The quick thing is I essentially left college and went to a position essentially it was a small, I guess you'd call it a program at Duke University, which was the TIP program, the Talent Identification Program. And so that, those first things that you do out of college, it's always chief cook and bottle washer. That was back in the day when, you did everything. I mean, we built the network, we installed all the computers, we did all the programming. And so that's really where things began. I went from there to being a consultant in the Triangle area. I went from that position. I think it's the same for a lot of people who start out like I did, doing networking and software development and database and really data architecture. One day they hand you this hat that says manager, and they don't really say much else. They just say, go be a manager. And that's what happened. I went to Alcatel after that, and then several other companies, really as a consultant. For a long time, I was a consultant for this company that starts with O and has a lot of red in their background. So I won't mention Oracle, but I definitely had a lot of opportunities across mostly Fortune 500 companies to go in, gather requirements, build teams, build a product for them. Give them the keys after their training and head out. So a lot of different companies I've been at. About 20 of the Fortune 500, I've created something with a group of great people.
Oh, wow. So that's actually quite impressive. That's something I didn't know coming into this. I mean, obviously I knew you've been in several different companies, but I didn't realize the quantity of those. So that's very, very impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of good times. Actually, and funny thing, the entire time, in some way or another, IBM was there as my partner. And so when this opportunity came to work at IBM, I thought, well, for the last 23 years before I started my 11 years currently at IBM, I thought, why not? Because I've been working with IBM the last 23 years. So I kind of I give myself essentially a 34-year reign at the company as opposed to the 23-year reign or 34. But it's been a great ride.
Makes sense. And I imagine that, coming into IBM, all that experience, you were obviously working with non-IBM technologies in these various roles, as well as IBM technologies. So I'm sure that's probably helped you in this role to kind of understand how all the pieces fit together, how the different technologies, the pros and the cons, how, just because obviously companies aren't just going to have one vendor, they're going to have multiple vendors at play. So it probably helps you really help them to know, okay, here's how all these pieces could fit together from those different vendors, just based on your personal experience. Or maybe I'm making that up. I don't know.
No, it's very much so. In fact, being chiefly a consultant. So I actually worked for Booz Allen Hamilton, which did a lot of things. Well, actually, it was exclusively around government contracts. And then KPMG, which most of mine were like quick service restaurant. My kids used to get a kick out of saying, my dad works at McDonald's, because I did a year-long gig at McDonald's. And at Yum Brands, I did a 2-year gig there. So I did a lot of quick service restaurant projects. But when you're a consultant, there really is the freedom to essentially say, okay, customer, what's your tech stack? And then you just went after whatever, fit for them. So I guess in a way, I sort of have an understanding of our friends in IBM Consulting, when they don't use our products. Sometimes it's chiefly because that's not what the client wants to use, and so I have a little more tender place in my heart for our consulting brothers and sisters.
That makes sense. I mean, like I said, not every company is going to have just one vendor for everything, and we realize people have their strengths, their weaknesses, and I mean, and something that I've noticed in my short time at IBM is I feel like a lot of the products that IBM develops, just from a software perspective, I'm not knowledgeable on hardware. I'll just being honest. But from a software perspective, I personally feel like there's a sense of openness, of community, of, we're not trying to necessarily rip and replace everything. We have this product and we feel like it's complementary to this existing thing you have, or, we think it could coexist. I mean, is that kind of been your thought or experience as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'd worked, well, actually, I think I've had the pleasure of working at most companies where people are definitely very much in that realm of helping each other out, but IBM definitely the bar raised when I came to IBM with regard to that, and especially the executive reach. And I just think that is so central to what is great about our huge portfolio, is that we work together. And we're still, pretty long ways from one IBM, which I may be fired for, but that's the thing really that I hope that we gain an even greater capability in terms of really saying, okay, clearly we need to engage IBM Consulting to carry this over the finish line. But, here are the pieces, parts that make sense. And so if we can be teamed together and find that really it's finding the right opportunities at clients, because sometimes they're already geared towards a particular system integrator, and it's not going to be an IBM opportunity. But definitely answering your question, Josh, straight up, definitely great feel for executive reach at the brand level. Everybody's trying to help everybody else be successful. It doesn't mean there's not some coin-operated status in there for some, but by and large, great ride here at the mothership.
Absolutely. I agree with that completely. Like I said, I've been here a short time, but my experience has been I think it's been great. And I feel like just the paradigm has kind of even shifted in my short time here, with the boom of AI and Watson X, and just the way that IBM is handling that, what their point of view has been, how they're embracing open source communities. They're building all these partnerships, AWS, Hugging Face, Meta, and they're even building partnerships with people who are, let's just say, competitors. So like an AWS, for example, that's a competitor in a lot of regards, but they're also partnering with them. So, I think obviously that's very above my pay grade, how all that comes about, but I think that's extremely interesting.
Actually, that's a legacy of IBM, and really one of IBM's, what I would consider greatest aspects is for decades now, they've been doing that. A lot of that started with the follow the sun programming in Java, and many other open source. I would say Hugging Face was almost something that was absolutely going to happen, because we see that as a bonus. I mean, we've provided thousands of engineers to efforts across open source. We definitely were essentially saying, hey, we're going to release something to to the open domain and allow others to use it when it makes sense, and then utilize that. I mean, IBM probably has more usage of open software than really any other company, because of the number of SKUs that we have just in the things that we've developed. So yeah, that's a long time thing at IBM. Glad that you're in the thick of what we're doing now, because this is definitely level up.
Yeah, for sure. So something I want to ask you, just kind of get your thoughts on it. So let's say someone because I think you'd have an interesting take. Someone walks up to you and you're having a conversation. You say something about working at IBM or IBM software or whatever it may be, and they have some response that like, that's a legacy, or that's my daddy or granddaddy's software or whatever. What's your response there?
Well, actually, my favorite response is that the top banks in the world still run on our mainframes. And
it was like 90%, or I can't remember the exact number.
It's it's 90% of the top 25 banks, I believe, is the metric. And then not only that, I mean, I'm a big Z fan simply because it is the bedrock of many businesses still. There was a long time where people were trying to get off of the mainframe, especially around the turn of the century. And so that was a lot of the projects where, we need to get rid of the mainframe. But one of the greatest examples I have, maybe I shouldn't say their name in the video, but I was back. It's only been 4 or 5 years ago. I was again doing the software client architect role, and they were trying to get rid of their mainframes. They bought 5 that year because it was just so obvious that they have so much code, and so much of their business actually has been running for decades with no problem. It's still one of the greatest platforms that exists. I mean, Power obviously has sort of, I guess, eclipsed it in a way because of what we do and how we started Watson out in 2011 and such. So, I mean, there's just my elevator story to them is always, be careful how and where you read on the internet, because unless you find the real facts, you'll find that, mention the banks, but also the fact of how much uptime that any client that utilizes a Z mainframe has enjoyed. And they forget about that until we start, because there's a lot of, we have, I think, only 4 of our 16 clients have Z. And most of them have been trying to move away from it. We've sold things on Z in every one of them. So it definitely, it's something that I think people are too quick to judge. One of the things that also is annoying to me, so this takes your question to the cloud. IBM is the number 1 cloud in business to business. But most people don't know that because all they care about is B2C, which are the top.
I personally didn't know that. So I learned something.
Yeah. So AWS, Google, and our friends at Microsoft. I mean, those are the top 3 for for B2C. But if you're talking B2B, which is, all about the banks and other things, we're the number one cloud in the world.
So something that anyone listening to this, if they start thinking they want to say bad words about Z or whatever the case may be, they need to remember, if you go to swipe your credit card, you want it to work, right?
That's right.
So
you want to get paid.
You want to get paid.
So many things, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, just be careful what you wish for, right?
Yep, indeed.
So I want to pivot just a little bit. So, like I said earlier, I was talking to my kids, and I was telling them about this process. And my oldest son, he's 6, he's almost 7. He had a question he wanted me to ask on his behalf.
Oh, awesome! He's already a budding YouTuber.
Yeah, so he had a question. So his question, and he has some information about you, but where the question came from, like, why is this related to you? Your guess is as good as mine. So his question is, do you like bananas and or juice?
Bananas and or juice.
Yeah.
I would say I'm a banana and juice guy.
Okay. Any particular juice? All the juices, or?
Actually, so my go-to, especially when I go to a hotel in the morning to have breakfast, I love to mix orange juice and really any of the other juices. But generally, if there's a good shall we say, less sweet. I don't really like apple juice with orange juice because then it's just super sweet. But a lot of the other juices that they offer at those wonderful executive lounges at hotels, that's my go-to for juices. And then I actually always pick up a banana or an apple that I'll eat sometime later that morning.
Okay, so
you can let your boy know.
Yeah, so now I'm afraid he's been following you around at these hotels. Be like, that seems like a banana and juice guy. That's why I'm going to ask that question.
It's true. I mean, almost every of your continental breakfast, slash the executive lounges that we go to at all these hotels. I mean, they really cut back. They used to be really fancy and nice. Now they're really just a tiny cut above your standard continental breakfast.
Well, personally, as long as I get a free breakfast, I'm just happy as can be. If there's free food involved, all right, that's free. I'm finger quotes, right? Free, yeah. You're paying for it, but it feels free. So we were at Legoland down in Orlando last week or the week before, and that was one of the big perks there is it's free breakfast. I mean, obviously, like I said, you're paying for it, but in the moment, it feels very free.
Yeah, it feels free.
Bring out this like 2-foot wide skillet in front of you full of everything you could imagine. It's great.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a Lego museum. I don't know if it's a Lego Land that was in Indianapolis. And it was really funny because when it first opened, you basically couldn't go there unless you had a kid with you. So it was like, we don't want a bunch of adults, being fanboys throughout the place. We want children to enjoy this.
Then eventually they realized there were a lot of adult fans of Legos. I guess we better let them in.
Exactly.
You can't see it on my camera right now, but if I were to point my camera at the floor, there's actually a giant brand new Lego sitting there. So when we went to Legoland, I was like, we're in this because they have a very large store when you walk in. And of course, my kids were wanting to buy some stuff. And I was like, I want to buy something too. So right. I bought myself a nice, it's like a medieval village, and that'll be going up on the shelf at some point. So
nice.
Trying to hide it from view, but yeah, I enjoy building that as well. So when we chatted before, we actually started recording and before we started the podcast, and I believe there was a fun work story from your past that you would like to share, and I want to make sure we're able to cover that.
Yeah, it's actually a quickie. So I, being a full-time consultant and essentially always having, there would be a year, maybe, actually there was a full 2 years when I was doing the gig at Yum, where I was at the same Residence Inn at Marriott. I basically moved in at the beginning of that 2 years, and then I went home on the weekend and then came right back. So I really didn't have to travel with anything. And that happened a lot. I spent about roughly a year and a half in California. and was flying back and forth. So I had a ton of miles. And what was interesting was when my kids could come and visit, like throughout the whole week. Obviously, my wife would come and they would come. Sometimes it would just be a few of them. But by and large, there was this period of time when all of us were 2 years in California all together. And so when we flew, everyone flew in first class because you had enough points. And so the funny thing is, you know, all these people would be passing you at the gate and going, oh, so I probably should mention I have 4 daughters and 2 sons.
Okay, I was going to ask how many. Yeah.
Yeah. So a family of 8, you know, and we got lucky. All of our kids were very well behaved in public. And so, you know, people that were coming up to check in, maybe find out where they were on the waiting list for first class, and they would tell us what a nice family we were. And then when they saw that we took up 8 first class seats, not such happy faces, no comments of joy. So it was
you're the reason I couldn't get into first class for this.
Yeah, exactly. Fly with my family, and we take up half of first class. It was I just probably not too funny for the other people, but we always got a kick out of it. How people went from being, you know, super friendly to being to kind of giving dirty looks to us as they walked by.
Well, and I'm also imagining the looks of the people who didn't, you know, see you beforehand, but they're just getting on the flight later, and they're seeing rows and rows of children. They're just like, how are all these kids affording first class? What's going on?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'd paid for first class a few times in my life, but only when it was a really long transatlantic, and, you know, sometimes your company doesn't actually level you up. And so, but I think all of us have flown a ton of first class by virtue of all the flying that we used to do. In fact, at IBM, before we went to the go-to-market plan, I used to cover a couple of cities a week on a regular basis. So lots of flights.
I was upgraded to first class just a month or 2 ago on a flight that I had coming back from Memphis, and it was only because it got delayed and pushed back. So they said, hey, you know, we could get you on this later flight, but we'll upgrade you to first class. And I was all excited, but then I get on there and the TV that's in the screen on the, you know, seat in front of me doesn't even work. I'm like, come on, guys.
What?
I need this first class experience. Why isn't the TV working? And throughout the flight, I would just stick my finger up there and poke at it and see if something would happen. And it wouldn't. And the guy over next to me his is working fine, but he has a book and he doesn't care. I'm like, man, come on.
Switch seats, bro.
It wasn't fair. So
yeah. No, well, you know, and classically, since I'm an old guy, the other part of first class that was really so much more glorious was the food. Like, you literally used to be able to get you know, a salmon salad as one of your options, or you could get a steak, usually a filet, at whatever temperature you wanted it. So they would actually cook it longer if you wanted it to be well. I like mine rare, so I would tell them to pull it out of the warmer right now. And it was just that was another funny thing when we finally had been away from traveling regularly long enough. We flew back out to California for my daughter to go to a music camp, and she happened to sit in the bulkhead just behind first class, and the flight attendant was coming by. And my daughter, so used to being in first class, she tapped her on the arm and said, I'd like a Coke. And you should have seen the flight attendant just kind of, you know, reared back and went, well, we'll be having a beverage service once we get in flight. Because my poor daughter didn't know she wasn't in first class. She couldn't ask for a drink before we took off. So, yeah, it was definitely a learning experience for the kids as well.
Flight attendant's like, what do you want, peasant? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Peasant.
So when you were a kid, what did you want to, like at that time, what did you want to be when you grew up?
No, actually,
I'm guessing it was a principal account technical leader. Maybe it was, but you know, what did you?
No, actually, I started out. Actually, my original degree was in cellular biology because I wanted to be a doctor, and I got towards the end of my cell biology degree, and I did a senior project with my basically my mentor professor. And we started doing a lot of quantitative analysis with the experimentation that we did. It was basically doing a bioassay for heart blocker medicines as opposed to animal assay. And I'd always been kind of a closet geek anyway. I built electronics. I built a synthesizer, when I was growing up. I had all those Heathkit, building circuits and things like that. But, I played sports too. So I didn't realize what a closet geek I was. So I came out in college is basically what I'm saying. And it was just kind of like, oh man, this is awesome. And so I decided I was going to go into biomedical engineering, which is essentially why I originally took the job at Duke, was to go there for biomedical engineering. And then I discovered consulting, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's makes sense. I didn't know it could have been astronaut or space cowboy. I wasn't sure.
Oh no, that actually was when I was a kid. It was astronaut, because I'm still a super freak about space, and especially SpaceX right now, and and hoping that NASA can kind of take some lessons from what's not going on in the NASA program and what is going on in Elon Musk's SpaceX world. But actually, I was the guy reading books about the moon and everything in grade school, instead of learning all the stats for baseball teams and football teams. So my head was in the stars instead of on the ground. So that precipitates other problems, but we won't go.
Maybe a little bit less closeted geek than you might.
Yeah, that was just me thinking. It's like everybody knows. That guy's a geek.
So when you're that age, you're in elementary, you're in grade school, whatever, somewhere around there. Christmas is coming up. Okay, think back to your childhood. Like, what is like the toy? Like, what is like the thing you're like, man, I want this above all else. If I don't get this, then my world is going to crumble.
Two things: a Rector set.
What is that? What is a Rector set? I don't know.
So a Rector set is really the original. It's before you had, you still had Legos and things like that. But if you really wanted to erect some sort of a machine that was based on nuts and bolts and motors and things like that, so I would call it pre-robotics kits. Okay. So the Erector set just consisted of different size girders, all kinds of these tiny screws and nuts, and you built stuff like a crane, that had, you either had a manual capability to raise the crane, that there were motor assist things, you could make a moon rover, you could make pretty much anything. I mean, it looked like, sort of a schematic drawing of something, because it was just all these girders and things, but that was the ultimate thing. And then I was totally into photography. Actually, I did a lot of wedding photography before I could even drive. And I look back at that and I go, how did anyone trust, a 14-year-old kid with an SLR camera to take their wedding photographs? But
he showed up on a bicycle. His parents didn't even drop him off.
I had a couple of older buddies that used to drive me. It's like, thanks. Yeah. Bill and Brad. That was my ride.
And you're, if I'm remembering correctly, you're still into photography even to this day, correct?
Oh yeah. I still have my first tripod. So that's my, it's actually fully aluminum, and there's really not much plastic to it. It's, they don't really sell them like that unless they're high-end professional, but great memories.
Nice. So I do want to shift a little bit. So I'm wearing my Watson X shirt for anyone who's watching the video version of the podcast. If you're not watching the video version, just listening, I'm wearing a Watson X shirt, which is IBM's data and AI platform. So I just kind of want to get your, for someone who's been here 11 years, Watson X is a little over a year old. So I just kind of want to get your general thoughts on the platform, and also ask you, what is your favorite generative AI use case, or the use case you think is kind of the most beneficial for businesses?
Actually, it's really, I think, more it's not the concept, but it's the utilization. So when we talk about Gen AI and massive things like ChatGPT, the if you just have a large language model and a bunch of data, we all know that, crazy things like hallucinations and things like that occur. The thing that stands out to me about Watson X as a platform is the understanding that we're looking at utilizing, the right large language model, and actually not mapping into that, but the foundation models that exist with these smaller data sets, right, utilizing the larger amount of data with this more constrained set, which is, local to only the client, I think is the genius of how we've put forth what Watson X can do, whether it's data AI. Well, it's generally AI as we're talking about that particular portion, but that's the most exciting thing to me. Use case wise, a lot of exciting use cases there. We've done a lot of really just demos for clients on what they can do with one of our partners called Soul Machines. And so it's every end of the spectrum from this is super cool to this is super creepy. But Soul Machines is a company that actually has avatars that can be driven to have many different essential looks. And actually you can create what that actual avatar is going to look like. And then the great part about it is you're still using, AI to answer questions, but you're getting a real-time response from what I think is a super cool, humanization of an avatar, because they look very human, but it still creeps people out. So I think I saw a picture of it one time. Yeah. Oh, did you? Yeah. So I think that's really been one of my favorite use cases, is utilizing the ability to actually talk to an avatar and then have them bring in to the actual landscape of what you're seeing about just them. To like, what we did was we put the graphic of a store in the background for the client that we were utilizing. We brought in, here's a list of the things that you need. I'm going to go ahead and email this to you if you confirm that it's okay to use your email address. And then, all of a sudden, QR codes can appear. It's just this holistic ability to kind of deal with not just finding a part number, but what we call a lot of times, especially in the store world where it's a brick and mortar and we're actually selling something, to do really a project-oriented thing. So think about it. If I'm going to the grocery store, this is the opportunity to actually feed. These are my meals over the next week. Tell me what I need to buy and tell me where it is in the store. That's a project-oriented capability, to utilize that. And not that you have to have someone speaking it to you. I mean, you could have it in your headset, but you're still looking at something. And I just think it's fun to be able. Actually, one of the first ones that we did was modeled after the IA rep. Her daughter was the model for the avatar. So it was just a lot of fun to see her daughter actually speaking to our clients. So do you feel like that type of use case technology, do you feel like that's going to become more and more prevalent over the next couple of years? Like we may start walking into stores and seeing these, AI-driven avatars that are kind of assistants within the store? Yeah, it remains to be seen. If you believe all the, you look at Minority Report and all the different Hollywood movies. I mean, those kind of visionaries in terms of the future of our life definitely leads me to believe that there will be a lot of that, because I mean, it's too easy to use it in advertising, to kind of draw people in. So, but AI has so much more to offer than just that. That's just kind of a fun part. Yeah. So speaking of Watson X, recently here at IBM, we had the Watson X Challenge. So the idea there is for every employee at IBM to get their hands on Watson X and, form groups and have a particular track, a particular focus and build something out. There was a competition, there. And, we were actually on the same team. You were part of our 10-person team.
So I do want to get your thoughts on that. But, before we do that, I do just want to say, I appreciate you, being on that team. I think we had a lot of fun. Appreciate all our fun conversations. You always had very nice things to say to all of us. And for some reason, ever since I've known you, you've had very nice things to say to and about me. So, I definitely want to say thank you for that. I'm like, I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm not going to correct him.
Yeah, no, it's well deserved, Josh, for sure. And we had such a great and both ends of the spectrum team, so everyone from our general manager to, grunt former coders like myself. So it really, for me, the genius of those, and I really think that that's genius. It takes a lot of time, and we really, although none of us really work what you would consider a normal work week, but the time that's afforded everyone to really come to know not only what the Watson X platform it is, but really what people know in their different roles and what they bring. I think being able to have an opportunity, a platform like that, to get to know others in different roles and to see what they bring, it spreads out our understanding of the huge number of facets that make up a business like this.
Yeah, and one of my personal thoughts when you're going into how the team started forming, shaking up, I was like, man, we have a very diverse team, not like racially or something like that, but just from skill set perspective.
Right.
We have a very diverse group of what people know. Here's a guy who's a data guy, here's a guy who's an AI guy. I thought that was great, kind of getting everybody together, because I think it's very easy to kind of get focused on the things that you live and breathe every day. Some people, and I'm guilty of this all the time, not thinking of the big picture. How does this fit with the things that are outside of my portfolio or outside of my platform? So that was great for me to, get to collaborate with everybody on, learning things that are outside of my normal portfolio.
Yeah.
I mean, Watson X is my portfolio, but you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I do. And that's, as we talked earlier, I think that's one of the things that's made this job so enjoyable. And being a software client architect, you were always working alongside many different brands. And so you really got to see, how the pieces parts fit together.
Well, I know we're probably approaching time. I'm assuming we're doing this during our work day, so I'm sure you probably have a meeting coming up. So I do want to be respectful of your time. But as we're bringing this thing to a close, I do want to ask, and if you don't have one, or if there's one that's not okay to share, that's totally fine. So I just want to know if you have a funny story from your time at IBM, maybe some kind of hilarious client interaction. That's okay. You don't have to say names, or maybe just an employee interaction. I'm just curious if you have any funny stories you'd like to share from your time at IBM.
Oh my goodness.
That's appropriate.
Yeah, right. That's appropriate. Now, most of them are appropriate, I would think. Oh yeah, definitely. Probably the funniest time, and I don't know, maybe a little cringy, but we had an opportunity to go at one of these large conferences that we have in Vegas to a Cirque du Soleil show, and this happened to be the Beatles show. And afterwards, people were asking us, to take some pictures because they saw us doing, selfies. They always, when you take your clients places, you want to remember the situation.
And you got to post it on LinkedIn, so you got to get the pictures.
Right. But the cringy part is, back in the day, we were still utilizing things for. Or the capability to put things on Facebook, that was still like an okay thing, even with things you did. LinkedIn was, I would say, less graphic back then, but there just happened to be in these pictures that people were asking us to take. They were supposed to be somewhere else. And it wasn't until it went to social media. So here we are. There's several of us. And we definitely find out that unwittingly we have included some people on social media that we shouldn't have, which is probably why they don't want us to put anything on Facebook anymore.
So you're the reason. You're the reason.
Yeah, that's the reason. but it was just, oh gosh, it's cringy but hilarious at the same time. It's like, really, you weren't supposed to be there, and you weren't supposed to be with a certain person. That was the other aspect. So if we would have done the longitudinal funny of it, there was definitely some intermarrying after that, and it's just those funny things that happen to you in real life that you're not aware of, but. You should probably use my airplane story as the funny part, Josh. But
no, it's good. We're gonna keep it in.
We're gonna keep it. Okay. That was great being with you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're honestly, you're very enthusiastic about this. I sent you a message about this idea and you were all over it. So I definitely appreciate that. I appreciate your encouragement, your enthusiasm. Like I said earlier, you've always been very supportive of me and super nice. So, definitely appreciate that and appreciate you taking right around an hour of your day. I know it's hard to get an hour of your time. You're a busy man, so appreciate you taking an hour of your day to chat with me. And I mean, I know I personally learned a lot. So, just thankful for you to come out here or not come out here, but on here and essentially be my guinea pig as one of the very first guests for this, as I'm trying to figure out exactly how this is going to work and what I'm going to do. So yeah, appreciate your time.
No, my pleasure. And the work you're doing to teach many people on your channel is amazing as well, and it's what gives me excitement. And I'm not saying things just to say things. I really mean it, Josh. You're doing an awesome job, man. So keep it going.
I appreciate it.